Hello, and welcome to the new episode of The Sleepy Space. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing on solid ground. Feel the stillness beneath your feet, the reassuring weight of earth supporting every step you take. But what if I told you that this feeling of stillness is the most beautiful illusion our planet offers? What if the ground beneath you is actually moving, flowing, breathing in a rhythm so slow and ancient that your entire lifetime is but a single heartbeat in its endless dance? Tonight, as you settle into the quiet comfort of rest, let your mind journey downward through the layers of our restless world. Picture yourself sinking gently through soil and sediment, past the familiar realm where roots reach and water flows, deeper into realms where pressure transforms everything into something magnificent and strange. The earth beneath you is not the solid, unchanging foundation it appears to be. Instead, you rest upon vast plates of rock that float like enormous rafts on an ocean of molten stone. These plates, pieces of our planet's outer shell called the lithosphere, drift across the surface with the patience of deep time, carrying continents and ocean floors on journeys that span millions of years. Your house, your neighborhood, your entire continent rides upon one of these massive stone rafts. Right now, as you breathe quietly in the darkness, you are traveling. North America drifts westward at about the same rate your fingernails grow, roughly 2 inches each year. It seems impossibly slow, yet over the span of geological time, this gentle movement has carried the land beneath you thousands of miles from where it began. Imagine these plates as puzzle pieces on a sphere, each one fitting against its neighbors in an intricate dance of pressure and motion. Along their edges, where one plate meets another, the real drama of our planet unfolds. Some edges pull apart like a slow-motion wound in the Earth's skin, allowing molten rock to rise and create new ocean floor. Others slide past each other in a grinding embrace that can last for millions of years. And sometimes, in the most spectacular geological events our planet knows, these massive plates collide. Deep beneath you, hundreds of miles down, the rock becomes so hot and pressurized that it behaves like thick, flowing honey. This is the asthenosphere, a layer of the Earth's mantle where solid rock flows in currents as real and powerful as any ocean current above. These deep rivers of flowing stone carry heat from the Earth's core toward the surface, creating the driving force that moves the plates above. Picture yourself floating in this deep, hot darkness, where temperatures reach over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Here, time moves differently. What we experience as solid, unchanging rock learns to bend and flow. Crystals grow and dissolve in cycles that span millennia. Elements separate and recombine in a slow alchemy that has been reshaping our planet for over 4 billion years. The heat that drives this endless motion comes from deep within the Earth's core, where temperatures rival the surface of the sun. Some of this heat is left over from the planet's violent birth, when countless collisions with asteroids and other debris melted the entire world into a ball of magma. Other heat comes from the steady decay of radioactive elements trapped within the Earth since its formation, a nuclear furnace that will keep burning for billions of years to come. As this heat rises through the mantle, it creates vast circulation patterns, like the convection currents in a slowly boiling pot of soup. Hot material rises toward the surface, while cooler material sinks back down, creating a three-dimensional dance of flowing rock that extends thousands of miles beneath your feet. These currents grab on to the bottom of the floating plates above and drag them along in their eternal circulation. Your continent, the stable, familiar land you call home, is actually just a passenger on this incredible journey. The rocks beneath major cities like New York and Los Angeles are traveling in different directions, carried by plates that are slowly but inexorably pulling the continent apart. In about 50 million years, a narrow sea will separate California from the rest of North America. In 200 million years, the Atlantic Ocean will begin to close as the continents drift back toward each other. This is not catastrophe. This is the natural breathing of our planet. The Earth has been inhaling and exhaling continents for billions of years, gathering them together into massive supercontinents, then allowing them to drift apart again in cycles that span hundreds of millions of years. You are living during one moment in this vast respiratory cycle, floating on your raft of rock through the deep currents of geological time. Feel yourself held by this ancient rhythm. The same forces that will someday reshape coastlines and mountain ranges are the forces that created the ground beneath you. The forces that brought together the very elements that make up your body. You are not separate from this restless planet. You are part of its ongoing story, made from materials that have traveled through the deep earth and emerged, transformed, into the world of light and air where life can flourish. The limestone in your bones was once the shell of a sea creature that lived in ancient oceans. The iron in your blood was forged in the heart of a dying star, and later stirred through the Earth's hot interior before becoming part of you. Every atom in your body has been on an incredible journey through both space and deep time, and even now that journey continues. As you rest here in the present moment, you are simultaneously traveling through space on a spinning planet, drifting across the Earth's surface on a moving plate of rock, and participating in the 4 billion-year story of a world that never stops changing. Your moment of stillness is held within an infinity of motion. Your brief rest cradled by the eternal restlessness of stone. Tonight, let yourself be comforted by this vast perspective. You are not alone on a dead rock hurtling through empty space. You are part of a living, breathing planet whose deep patience and endless creativity have been crafting the conditions for life since the beginning of time itself. And as these continental rafts continue their slow-motion dance across the Earth's surface, they inevitably approach moments of encounter, times when the patient drift of millions of years builds toward something magnificent and transformative. As you drift deeper into the night's embrace, let your imagination expand to encompass the grandest dance our planet has ever known. Picture the continents as ancient titans, massive beyond comprehension,
moving through deep time with the grace of sleeping dancers. These ancient continental giants have been waltzing across the Earth's surface for billions of years, sometimes approaching each other with the slow inevitability of destiny, sometimes drifting apart like lovers who must wait eons to meet again. Tonight, you rest upon one of these titans, North America, as it glides westward through geological time. Feel yourself carried along on this incredible journey, riding the back of a titan that weighs billions upon billions of tons, yet floats as gracefully as a leaf on the flowing currents of the Earth's deep interior. Your titan moves with purpose, following ancient choreography written in the language of heat and pressure, magnetism and gravity. But your continent is not dancing alone. Across the Pacific Ocean, another titan approaches, a massive slab of oceanic crust that has been traveling toward your shores for over 100 million years. This oceanic plate, dense and heavy with the weight of accumulated seafloor sediments, slides beneath the edge of your continental giant in a process geologists call subduction. Imagine this meeting as the embrace of two colossal beings, one sinking gracefully beneath the other in a gesture of geological courtesy that spans millions of years. As the oceanic plate descends into the Earth's hot interior, it carries with it the accumulated stories of ancient seas, layers of sediment that once blanketed the ocean floor, the remains of countless microscopic creatures, the dust of distant continents, the chemical signatures of bygone climates, all travel downward into realms where pressure and temperature transform everything into something new and extraordinary. This is not a violent collision in any sense you might imagine. The movement is so slow, so patient, that if you could compress 1,000,000 years into a single day, you would see the oceanic plate sliding beneath your continent at about the speed that our hand moves around a clock face. There is no urgency here, no catastrophic crash. Only the inexorable patience of geological process, the deep breathing of a planet that measures time in ways that dwarf human comprehension. Yet this gentle embrace between titans generates forces of unimaginable magnitude. As the descending oceanic plate encounters the increasing heat and pressure of the deep earth, something magical begins to happen. The rock itself begins to change its very nature. Minerals that formed in the cool depths of ancient oceans find themselves in an alien environment of crushing pressure and searing heat. Like alchemical transformations in some cosmic laboratory, they begin to reorganize their atomic structures, creating entirely new types of rock with properties perfectly adapted to their deep, hot world. Some of these transformed rocks become denser than water, despite starting life as solid stone. Others develop the ability to conduct electricity or exhibit magnetic properties that would seem impossible in the familiar world above. The boundary between the descending oceanic plate and your continent becomes a zone of metamorphosis, where the ordinary rules of surface geology give way to something far more mysterious and beautiful. As this transformation continues, water trapped within the descending rocks begins to escape. This is not ordinary water, but water that has been locked away in crystal structures for millions of years. Water that carries with it the chemical essence of ancient seas and long-buried sediments. As this deep water rises into the hot rocks above, it acts like a catalyst in a vast chemical reaction, lowering the melting point of the surrounding stone and creating pockets of molten rock, magma, that begins to rise toward the surface. Feel yourself floating above this hidden world of transformation, resting peacefully while far beneath you, the slow alchemy of plate collision creates the raw materials for future mountains, future continents, future islands that will not emerge for millions of years to come. The magma rising beneath you carries within it the essence of both the oceanic depths and the continental heights, a perfect marriage of Earth's different realms, united by pressure and time into something entirely new. This ascending magma does not rush toward the surface like water from a broken pipe. Instead, it rises through the solid rock above with the same patient deliberation that characterizes all geological processes. Some of these rising bodies of molten rock will cool and solidify while still underground, forming enormous chambers of granite and other igneous rocks that will only be revealed millions of years later when erosion strips away the layers above them. Others will eventually reach the surface, creating chains of volcanoes that mark the location where your continent meets the descending oceanic plate. But even these volcanic expressions of the deep collision happen in geological time. A volcanic chain might take tens of millions of years to fully develop, with individual volcanoes growing and dying across time spans that encompass the entire history of complex life on Earth. The Cascade Range, stretching from Northern California to British Columbia, represents just such a volcanic chain, the surface expression of the patient collision between your continental titan and the oceanic plates of the Pacific. As you rest in the present moment, you are witnessing just one frame in an epic film that has been running for hundreds of millions of years. The dance of these titans has created and destroyed mountain ranges, opened and closed ocean basins, and fundamentally reshaped the geography of our planet countless times. Yet from your perspective, floating peacefully on the back of your continental giant, all seems still and permanent. This is the beautiful paradox of geological time, that the most dramatic and transformative processes our planet knows unfold so slowly that they become invisible to direct observation, detectable only through the patient accumulation of evidence written in stone. You live your entire life during what amounts to a single moment in this continental dance, yet that moment is no less significant for its brevity. Your brief presence adds to the ongoing story of these colliding worlds, your very existence made possible by the patient collision of titans. The elements in your body, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the phosphorus in your DNA, have all participated in this dance at various times throughout Earth's history. They have been part of ancient seafloors that descended into the deep earth, part of magmas that rose toward the surface, part of mountains that were built up and worn down again in the endless cycles of geological time. Tonight, as these continental titans continue their patient approach toward one another, building pressures that will someday birth new mountain ranges in a crescendo of geological creativity, you can rest peacefully in the knowledge that you are part of their eternal story. Let your mind rise now from the deep dance of titans to witness one of the earth's most magnificent acts of creation. As you float in the peaceful darkness of approaching sleep, imagine yourself ascending through layers of time to watch mountains being born. This is not birth as you know it, sudden, urgent, complete within hours or days. This is birth stretched across millions of years, a slow-motion symphony of pressure and stone that transforms flat landscapes into soaring peaks that scrape the belly of the sky. Picture the moment when two continental titans finally meet after their patient journey across geological time. For hundreds of millions of years, they have been approaching each other with the inexorable certainty of destiny, carried on the flowing currents of the Earth's deep interior. Now, at last, their edges touch in a collision so gentle that if you could witness it in real time, you would see nothing but stillness. Yet this apparent stillness contains forces powerful enough to lift solid rock miles into the air. When continents collide, neither can sink beneath the other as oceanic plates do. Continental crust is too light, too buoyant to descend into the dense, hot interior of the Earth. Instead, like two pieces of floating wood pushed together on the surface of a pond, they must find another way to accommodate their meeting. The Earth's solution is both elegant and dramatic. It simply lifts the collision zone skyward, creating mountain ranges that stand as monuments to the irresistible force of geological process. Feel yourself witnessing this slow-motion miracle of construction. The edge of each continent begins to buckle and fold like fabric pushed together by invisible hands. Layers of rock that once lay flat and peaceful, perhaps forming the floors of ancient seas or the quiet landscapes of river valleys, find themselves tilted vertical, folded into impossible geometries, thrust upward into realms where only clouds once dwelt. Imagine standing in what will someday become a mountain range, watching this transformation unfold across millions of years, compressed into moments. The ground beneath your feet begins to wrinkle like the surface of a slowly tightening drum. What were once horizontal layers of sedimentary rock, limestone formed from ancient coral reefs, sandstone that preserves the ripples of long-vanished beaches, shale that holds the compressed remains of prehistoric seafloors, all begin their patient journey toward the sky. This is how the Himalayas were born and continued to be born even now. 50 million years ago, the continental mass we now call India was a separate island, drifting northward across an ancient ocean called Tethys. As India approached the southern edge of Asia, the ocean between them began to close, its floor consumed by subduction zones that pulled the seafloor down into the Earth's deep interior. Finally, the ocean disappeared entirely, and India collided with Asia in the most spectacular continental collision our planet has witnessed in hundreds of millions of years. But this collision did not end with a single impact. Instead, India has continued pushing northward, driving itself into the heart of Asia at the geologically breakneck speed of 2 inches per year. The result is the highest mountain range on Earth, still growing taller as you rest peacefully in your bed tonight. Mount Everest gains approximately 4 millimeters in height each year, not much by human standards, but extraordinary when you consider that this represents the lifting of solid rock by forces generated thousands of miles away, transmitted through the patient collision of continental masses larger than countries. The birth of mountains reveals one of geology's most beautiful secrets, that the highest peaks on Earth are often made from rocks that formed in the deepest seas. As continents collide and their edges are thrust upward, they carry with them the accumulated sediments of ancient ocean basins. Limestone cliffs that now stand miles above sea level contain the fossilized remains of marine creatures that lived and died in tropical seas that no longer exist. The summit of Mount Everest itself is composed of limestone that formed on the floor of the Tethys Ocean, now lifted so high that it exists in a realm of permanent cold and thin air where no ocean creature could possibly survive. This is the Earth's gift to those who learn to see in geological time. The knowledge that mountains are the ocean floors of the past, lifted up and offered to the sky. When you look at a mountain range, you are seeing an ancient sea bottom turned on its side and thrust toward the heavens, carrying with it the stories of creatures and climates from eras so distant that they seem like dreams.
As mountains rise, they immediately begin their own patient journey back toward the sea. Wind and rain, frost and flowing water begin the slow work of erosion, grain by grain, returning the uplifted rock to the valleys and ultimately to the oceans from which much of it came. This is not destruction, but continuation, the endless cycling of materials that makes Earth a living planet rather than a static one. The sediments carved from young mountains become the raw materials for future rock layers, future landscapes, future mountains that will rise millions of years in the future, when continents collide again in new configurations. The calcium dissolved from limestone peaks feeds the growth of shells and coral reefs in distant seas. The minerals weathered from granite peaks enrich soils that support forests and grasslands thousands of miles away. You are part of this cycle too. The elements in your body have participated in this mountain-building process countless times throughout Earth's history. The phosphorus in your DNA may have once been part of a marine organism buried in deep-sea sediments, compressed into rock, lifted up in a mountain range, and weathered out to eventually become part of the soil that grew the plants that fed the animals that became your food. The calcium in your bones may have cycled through mountain limestone, ocean water, the shells of sea creatures, and countless other forms before becoming part of you. As you rest tonight, mountains are still being born around the world. The Alps continue rising as Africa pushes northward into Europe. The Andes grow taller as oceanic plates disappear beneath the western edge of South America. New ranges are beginning to form as Australia drifts northward toward Southeast Asia. In the deepest future, hundreds of millions of years from now, the Atlantic Ocean will begin to close, and the collision between the Americas and Europe-Africa will create mountain ranges that will dwarf even the modern Himalayas. But for now, in this quiet moment before sleep, you can rest in the knowledge that you live on a planet creative enough to turn seafloors into sky-touching peaks, patient enough to craft its greatest masterpieces across spans of time that make human history seem like a single breath. The mountains that frame your world, whether near or far, are love letters written by the earth to the sky, lifted up through the slow-motion thunder of continental collision. Tonight, as you settle into dreams, the earth continues its patient work of creation, lifting stone toward starlight in a process so gradual and so vast that it becomes a meditation on the true meaning of permanence. As the night deepens around you and your breathing grows more gentle, let your imagination drift across vast expanses of time to witness one of the Earth's most haunting performances, the disappearance of entire oceans. This is not the sudden draining you might picture, but something far more profound and beautiful. The patient compression of millions of cubic miles of seawater into nothing more than memories written in stone. Picture yourself floating over an ancient ocean that no longer exists, its waters sparkling under a sun that shone when the world was young and strange. This is the Tethys Ocean, a body of water so vast it once separated the northern and southern halves of our planet's landmasses. For hundreds of millions of years, this ocean teemed with life, creatures whose very existence seems like fantasy now, swimming in warm, clear waters that stretched from horizon to horizon under skies that knew no human gaze. Feel the deep peace of this vanished sea, its waves lapping against shores that have long since been crushed together and lifted up into mountain peaks. In its depths, coral reefs grew into limestone cathedrals, their calcium carbonate spires reaching toward the surface light. Microscopic creatures drifted in vast clouds, their tiny shells raining down constantly onto the ocean floor, building layers upon layers of what would someday become the raw material for some of Earth's greatest mountain ranges. But even as this ocean thrived, the continental titans that bordered it were already in motion, carried by the deep currents of the Earth's interior on a collision course that would span tens of millions of years. The Indian subcontinent, then an island the size of modern Australia, drifted northward across the Tethys at the geological equivalent of breakneck speed, several inches per year, while the Asian landmass remained relatively stationary, a patient giant waiting for the embrace that would reshape both forever.
As you drift through this meditation on vanished waters, imagine watching the ocean begin its long goodbye. At first, the changes would be imperceptible. The slightest narrowing of the distance between opposing shores, a gradual shallowing of the deepest trenches, as the seafloor itself began to crumple and fold under the approaching pressure of continental collision. If you could compress millions of years into moments, you would see the ocean basin closing like a vast mouth slowly shutting, its lips formed by the edges of approaching continents. The creatures of this dying sea had no awareness of their ocean's fate. Generations upon generations of marine life continued their ancient cycles. Coral polyps building their limestone homes, ammonites spiraling through the warm currents, microscopic foraminifera drifting in the surface waters and settling onto the seafloor in their billions. Each lived its brief life in the eternal present, unaware that their ocean was slowly, inexorably, being squeezed out of existence by forces beyond imagination. As the continents drew closer, something magical began to happen to the sediments that had accumulated on the ocean floor. The immense pressure of the approaching land masses began to compress and fold these layers of ancient sea bottom, transforming them from horizontal beds of sediment into vertical walls of rock. Limestone formed from coral reefs found itself tilted at impossible angles. Layers of shale that preserved the delicate impressions of ancient sea creatures were folded into complex geometries that would have seemed impossible to the organisms whose remains they contained. This is how oceans become mountains, how the horizontal becomes vertical, how the depths become heights. The very seafloor where countless generations of marine creatures lived and died was slowly, patiently lifted up toward the sky. Marine fossils that had rested in eternal darkness, thousands of feet below the ocean surface, began their long journey toward realms where only clouds and eagles dwell. Feel yourself witnessing this transformation, not violent or sudden, but patient beyond human comprehension. The closing of the Tethys Ocean took approximately 50 million years, a span of time so vast that it encompasses the entire age of mammals, the rise and fall of countless species, the drift of continents across thousands of miles. Yet from the perspective of the rocks themselves, this was merely a single smooth gesture in the Earth's ongoing dance of creation and transformation. As the final remnants of the Tethys Ocean disappeared, squeezed between the approaching continents like water from a sponge, its legacy became written in stone across thousands of miles of what is now the Himalayan mountain range. Every layer of limestone in those peaks is a chapter from the ocean's biography. Every marine fossil found at altitudes where no sea creature could survive is a love letter from the vanished waters to the world above. But the Tethys Ocean was not unique in its fate. Oceans have been born and have died throughout Earth's long history, each one lasting for hundreds of millions of years before being slowly compressed out of existence by the patient collision of continents. The Iapetus Ocean once separated what are now Europe and North America, its closure giving birth to the Appalachian Mountains. The Reich Ocean disappeared to create parts of the Ural Mountains. Each vanished sea left behind its signature in stone, layers of limestone filled with the fossils of creatures that swam in waters that no longer exist. Even now, as you rest peacefully in the present moment, other oceans are beginning their long journey toward disappearance. The Mediterranean Sea is slowly shrinking as Africa pushes northward into Europe. The Red Sea, though currently growing wider, will someday begin to close when the motions of the tectonic plates reverse their current directions. In the deepest future, the Atlantic Ocean itself will begin to narrow, and hundreds of millions of years from now, it too will close completely, bringing the Americas back into collision with Europe and Africa. This is the ultimate reminder of impermanence written in the largest script imaginable. Entire oceans, bodies of water larger than continents, existing for spans of time that encompass the entire history of complex life, yet ultimately temporary, ultimately destined to become nothing more than layers of rock pressed between colliding continents. Yet there is no sadness in this disappearance, only transformation. The water itself does not vanish. It is squeezed out of the closing ocean basin and flows into other seas, other basins, continuing its eternal circulation around the planet. The life that once filled these vanished waters does not disappear either. It becomes part of the fossil record, preserved in the limestone and shale that once formed the seafloor, carried up into mountain ranges where it tells its story to anyone who learns to read the language written in stone.
Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, you carry within your own body the chemical signatures of these ancient, vanished seas. The salt in your blood echoes the salinity of oceans that closed millions of years before your species existed. The calcium in your bones links you to the coral reefs that grew in the warm, clear waters of seas that have become mountains. You are, in the most literal sense, made from the memories of vanished oceans, and someday the elements that currently form your body will continue their journey through the Earth's great cycles of transformation, perhaps to swim in future seas, or to become part of mountain ranges that will rise long after today's oceans have closed and new ones have opened in their place. As sleep draws you deeper into its gentle embrace, let your consciousness descend through the solid foundation of the world into realms where stone flows like water, and fire moves in rivers older than continents. Far beneath the peaceful ground where you rest, beyond the reach of roots or rain, beyond the deepest wells that humans have ever drilled, the earth reveals its most ancient secret, a heart of molten rock that beats with the slow pulse of geological time. Picture yourself sinking through layers of increasingly warm stone, past the familiar realm of soil and sediment, through the bedrock that forms your continent's foundation, deeper still through miles of solid rock that grow hotter with every foot of descent. The temperature rises steadily as you journey toward the Earth's core.
not the gentle warmth of summer sunshine, but heat that would melt copper, heat that transforms the most stubborn stone into flowing liquid, heat left over from the violent birth of the planet itself. At depths of 60 to 100 miles beneath your resting body, you enter a realm that challenges every assumption about solid ground. Here, in the upper mantle of the earth, rock exists at temperatures hot enough to melt, yet most of it remains technically solid due to the immense pressure of all the rock layers above. This is the asthenosphere, a layer of the earth that behaves like an incredibly thick liquid, flowing in currents as real and powerful as any river system on the surface, yet moving with the patience that only geological time can teach. Feel yourself floating in this underground ocean of almost molten stone, watching currents of rock flow in three-dimensional spirals that span hundreds of miles and move at speeds measured in inches per year. These are the convection currents that drive the dance of continents above. Vast circulation patterns where hot rock rises from the deep interior, while cooler rock sinks back down, creating a planetary engine that has been running continuously for over 4 billion years. The heat that drives these deep rivers comes from multiple sources, each one a testament to the Earth's incredible age and complex history. Some of this heat is primordial, leftover energy from the countless collisions that built our planet during the chaotic early days of the solar system, when asteroids and planetesimals crashed together with such violence that they melted the entire Earth into a ball of magma. This ancient heat still radiates outward from the planet's core, moving through solid rock at the leisurely pace of geological process. Other heat comes from the steady decay of radioactive elements scattered throughout the Earth's interior. Uranium, thorium, and potassium atoms that have been slowly breaking down since the planet's formation, releasing energy in a nuclear reactor that makes human power plants seem like flickering candles. This radioactive decay will continue for billions of years, ensuring that the Earth's interior remains hot and active long after the sun itself begins to fade. As you drift through this underground realm of flowing stone, imagine the vast chambers and channels where molten rock, true liquid magma, pools and flows in darkness. These are not the small pockets of lava that occasionally reach the surface through volcanoes, but enormous bodies of molten rock that exist in permanent darkness, some of them larger than entire mountain ranges, flowing through underground passages that dwarf the greatest river systems on the surface. In these deep chambers, magma undergoes transformations that seem almost alchemical. Under the intense pressure and temperature of the deep earth, the chemical composition of molten rock changes continuously. Elements separate and recombine in processes that create entirely new minerals, some of which exist only in these extreme environments and would instantly transform if brought to the surface. Iron and magnesium-rich minerals crystallize out of the cooling magma and sink toward the bottom of the chambers, while lighter, silicon-rich components rise toward the top, creating layered compositions that span the entire spectrum of rock types. This is the birthplace of granite, that most common of continental rocks that forms the backbone of mountain ranges and the foundation of stable land masses. Deep beneath the collision zones where continents meet, the heat and pressure generated by the grinding together of massive rock formations creates ideal conditions for granite formation. Magma chambers the size of entire cities slowly cool and crystallize over millions of years, creating vast bodies of granite that will only be revealed when erosion strips away the miles of rock above them. Feel yourself witnessing this underground alchemy, this slow transformation of the raw materials of planets into the specific rocks that make continents possible. The granite forming in these deep chambers will someday become the cores of mountain ranges, the foundations of stable land masses, the basement rocks that support everything from prairie grasslands to towering forests. But for now, they exist only as cooling magma in chambers so deep that their existence can only be inferred from the subtle signals they send to the surface. Slight variations in gravitational fields, minute changes in the magnetic properties of surrounding rocks, the chemical signatures of the rare magmas that manage to reach the surface through volcanic eruptions. Some of these underground rivers of molten rock flow for thousands of miles through networks of chambers and channels that connect distant regions of the planet. Magma that begins its journey beneath one continent may eventually contribute to volcanic activity on the opposite side of the world, following pathways through the Earth's interior that trace the deep currents of the convecting mantle. These are the arterial systems of a living planet, carrying heat and chemical components from the deep interior to regions where they can participate in the surface processes that shape landscapes and create the conditions for life. The magma flowing through these deep networks carries more than just heat. It transports the raw materials for entire ecosystems. The minerals dissolved in molten rock include the phosphorus that will become part of DNA, the potassium that enables nerve signals to travel through living tissues, the iron that will carry oxygen in the blood of future creatures, the sulfur that will become part of proteins, the trace elements that make complex life possible. Every essential element for biology has spent time flowing through these underground rivers of fire, refined and concentrated by geological processes operating on timescales that encompass the entire history of life on Earth. As you rest peacefully above this underground inferno, consider that the warmth you feel from the Earth's surface, the geothermal springs that create natural hot pools, the gentle heat that keeps caves at constant temperatures year-round, even the barely perceptible warmth that radiates from the ground beneath your feet, all of it originates in these deep rivers of molten stone. The Earth's interior heat represents a continuous flow of energy from the planet's core to its surface, a flow that has never stopped since the planet's formation and will continue for billions of years into the future. This underground heat is not merely a geological curiosity. It is one of the fundamental forces that makes Earth a living world rather than a dead rock. The convection currents driven by this deep heat move the tectonic plates that renew ocean floors and build continents. They power the volcanic activity that recycles carbon and water between the deep Earth and the atmosphere. They drive the magnetic field that protects our planet from harmful solar radiation. They maintain the chemical cycles that keep the planet's surface habitable for life. Tonight, as you settle into dreams, vast rivers of molten rock continue their patient flow through chambers larger than cathedrals, carrying heat from the Earth's core toward the surface in a circulation system that connects the deepest interior of the planet with the atmosphere above. These fiery currents beneath your feet are not separate from your world. They are the hidden foundation that makes your world possible, the underground engine that powers the surface drama of moving continents and growing mountains. In your dreams, you might imagine yourself carried along by these deep currents, floating through chambers of liquid stone where time moves differently and pressure transforms the familiar into the extraordinary, where the raw materials of future landscapes flow like honey through darkness, waiting for their moment to rise toward the light and become part of the ever-changing surface of our restless, creative, endlessly fascinating planet.
As the night carries you deeper into the realm between waking and sleeping, let your mind descend once more into the Earth's hidden laboratories, where pressure performs miracles so gradual they seem like meditation. Here, in the quiet spaces between moving tectonic plates, between the roots of growing mountains and the depths where magma flows, ordinary rocks undergo transformations so profound they emerge as entirely different beings: diamond instead of coal, marble instead of limestone, slate instead of mud. This is metamorphism, literally meaning change of form. And it happens not through the dramatic violence of volcanic eruption or earthquake, but through the patient application of pressure and heat over millions of years. Imagine yourself witnessing this slow-motion alchemy, where the familiar minerals of surface rocks learn to reorganize themselves into crystalline structures that could never exist in the gentle conditions of the world above. Picture a piece of limestone formed millions of years ago from the compressed shells of ancient sea creatures resting peacefully on the ocean floor in what was once a warm, shallow sea. Each tiny fossil embedded in this rock tells a story of life in ancient waters. Coral polyps building their calcium carbonate homes, microscopic organisms drifting in prehistoric currents, larger creatures leaving their shells to become part of the seafloor when they died. But now, as continents drift together and the ocean basin begins to close, this limestone finds itself caught between approaching land masses, subjected to pressures that no surface environment could ever generate. The weight of miles of rock above presses down with irresistible force, while the grinding motion of continental collision squeezes from the sides. The temperature rises, not hot enough to melt the rock completely, but warm enough to make its mineral components restless, ready for change. Under these conditions of intense pressure and elevated temperature, something magical begins to happen within the limestone. The calcium carbonate crystals that formed in the cool waters of ancient seas find themselves in an alien environment where their current structure is no longer stable. Slowly, almost reluctantly, they begin to reorganize themselves into larger, more tightly packed crystals that can withstand the crushing forces surrounding them. Feel yourself watching this transformation unfold across geologic time.
The once rough texture of the limestone becomes smooth and polished as its crystals grow larger and interlock more tightly. The fossil shells that once decorated its surface blur and disappear as their calcium carbonate is redistributed into the new crystal structure. What emerges is marble, the same chemical composition as the original limestone, but transformed into something entirely different through the patient application of pressure and time. This is the gentle violence of metamorphism. Gentle because it happens so slowly that no sudden breaking occurs. Violent because it completely restructures the fundamental architecture of solid rock. The marble that emerges from this process bears almost no resemblance to the limestone from which it formed. Where the original rock was porous and crumbly, marble is dense and strong. Where limestone showed the rough textures of ancient seafloors, marble displays the smooth crystalline beauty that has made it prized by sculptors and architects for thousands of years. But limestone becoming marble is just one chapter in the vast encyclopedia of metamorphic transformation. Deep beneath the collision zones where continents meet, mudstones that formed from ancient river sediments undergo their own remarkable metamorphosis. Under moderate pressure, the clay minerals in these rocks begin to align themselves like soldiers falling into formation, creating the perfect cleavage planes that allow slate to split into thin, flat sheets that have roofed human dwellings for centuries. As pressure and temperature increase further, the slate continues its transformation. Its minerals grow larger and begin to segregate into distinct bands of light and dark crystals, creating the distinctive striped appearance of gneiss, a rock so thoroughly transformed that geologists often struggle to determine what it originally was. The same mudstone that began this journey as soft sediment on an ancient river bottom has become one of the hardest, most durable rocks on Earth.
The primary waves, P waves, race ahead at nearly 4 miles per second, compressing and expanding the rocks they pass through like an accordion. These are followed by the secondary waves, S waves, that shake the ground from side to side as they pass. Both types of waves carry information about the earthquake's location, its magnitude, and the nature of the rocks through which they travel, turning every seismic station on Earth into an ear pressed against the planet's chest, listening to its heartbeat. But earthquakes are not random events scattered arbitrarily across the planet's surface. They follow patterns as precise and predictable as any natural phenomenon, clustering along the boundaries where tectonic plates meet and interact. The ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean, the mountain-building zones where continents collide, the spreading centers where new ocean floor is born. These are the Earth's pulse points, the places where the planet's heartbeat is strongest and most regular. Most earthquakes happen in the deep privacy of the ocean floors or in remote mountain regions where few humans ever feel their effects. The vast majority of the Earth's seismic energy is released harmlessly, allowing the planet to maintain its dynamic equilibrium without affecting the surface world where life flourishes. These unfelt earthquakes are like the Earth's quiet breathing, constant small adjustments that prevent the buildup of truly enormous stresses.
Even the largest earthquakes, those that capture human attention and reshape coastlines, represent only tiny adjustments in the grand scheme of plate tectonics. The most powerful earthquake ever recorded moved one side of a fault only about 60 feet relative to the other, a distance you could walk in seconds, yet generated from the sudden release of stress that had been building for centuries across a fault zone hundreds of miles long. Consider the profound patience required for this process. The rocks along a major fault line may remain locked together for 200, 300, even 500 years, accumulating stress while generations of humans live and die in the apparent stability above. Trees grow from seedlings to giants. Rivers carve new channels. Entire civilizations rise and fall, all while deep underground the earth bends and stores energy for a moment of release that will last less than a minute. After a major earthquake, the earth enters a period of readjustment. Smaller aftershocks continue for weeks or months as the rocks settle into their new configuration, like the final notes of a symphony echoing in a concert hall. The stress that had been building for centuries has been released, and the slow process of accumulation begins again, preparing for the next earthquake decades or centuries in the future. You are living during one moment in this vast cycle of stress and release. The ground beneath you may seem solid and permanent, but it is actually a dynamic system in constant slow motion. The Earth's crust around you is gradually deforming, storing energy, preparing for future moments of adjustment that your great-great-grandchildren may feel, or that may not come for centuries after you have returned to the elements from which you came. The elements in your body have experienced countless earthquakes throughout geological time. The iron in your blood has been shaken by seismic waves from earthquakes that occurred when the continents were in completely different positions. The calcium in your bones has felt the Earth's pulse transmitted through rocks that no longer exist in their original form. You are made from materials that have danced to the rhythm of the Earth's heartbeat for billions of years. Tonight, as you rest in the peaceful quiet before sleep, small earthquakes are occurring around the world, most too gentle to be felt, all part of the Earth's ongoing conversation with itself. Seismic waves from these distant events are passing through your body right now at speeds too fast to perceive, carrying messages about the planet's constant small adjustments, its endless process of finding balance in motion. The Earth's heartbeat is not regular like yours, but it is just as essential to the planet's health. Through earthquakes, the Earth prevents the accumulation of stresses that would otherwise build to truly catastrophic levels. Through this process of sudden release, the planet maintains the dynamic equilibrium that makes continental drift possible, that keeps the deep interior circulating, that maintains the magnetic field protecting life from solar radiation. As you drift toward dreams, rest in the knowledge that you live on a planet so dynamic, so alive that even its moments of greatest adjustment serve the cause of stability and balance.
As sleep draws you into its final embrace, let your consciousness expand one last time to encompass the vast, patient dance that has been your companion throughout this journey into the Earth's hidden depths. You have traveled through geological time,
witnessed the birth of mountains and the death of oceans, felt the slow rivers of fire beneath your feet, and watched diamonds form in the darkness. Now, as you prepare to surrender to dreams, feel yourself held by the profound rhythm that connects all these processes, the deep, eternal breathing of the planet that is your home. This is the moment to understand your place in the grand story that has been unfolding for over 4 billion years. You are not separate from the geological forces that shape continents and move mountains. You are not an observer standing apart from the Earth's great cycles of creation and transformation. You are woven into the very fabric of this restless world, made from elements that have participated in every chapter of the planet's long autobiography. The oxygen you breathe tonight was released by ancient cyanobacteria that learned to harness sunlight billions of years ago, transforming the Earth's atmosphere and making complex life possible. This oxygen has circulated through countless lungs, dissolved in countless oceans, been locked away in rocks and released again through weathering, participated in the burning of ancient forests and the respiration of creatures whose fossils now lie embedded in limestone cliffs that were once sea floors and are now mountain peaks. The water that flows through your body tonight has fallen as rain on continents that no longer exist, filled oceans that have closed and disappeared, flowed in rivers that carved canyons through landscapes now buried beneath miles of sediment. It has been steam rising from volcanic vents, ice locked in glaciers during ice ages you can barely imagine, groundwater flowing through caves in rocks that formed before life learned to leave the sea. Every carbon atom that forms the backbone of your DNA has its own epic journey through deep time. Some may have been part of the calcium carbonate shells that built ancient coral reefs, compressed into limestone, heated and pressurized during mountain building episodes, weathered out of cliffs by rain and wind, dissolved in rivers, precipitated in new rocks, dissolved again, and eventually incorporated into the plants that became your food. Others may have been part of the organic matter that accumulated in ancient swamps, compressed into coal, heated until it became diamonds in the deep crust, then brought to the surface by rare volcanic eruptions, weathered into soil, and taken up by plants that fed the animals that became you. Feel yourself as part of this magnificent circulation of materials through the Earth's great systems. You are not a temporary visitor to this planet. You are the planet temporarily organized into consciousness, awareness, the capacity for wonder. The elements that make up your body are on loan from the Earth's vast reserves, borrowed for the brief span of your lifetime before returning to participate in other forms, other cycles, other moments of organization and beauty. Your brief existence is held within layers of time so vast they challenge comprehension. The rocks beneath you remember when the atmosphere contained no oxygen, when the only life was microscopic, when the day was only 18 hours long because the moon was closer and the earth spun faster. The deepest rocks have witnessed the entire history of life on Earth, from the first simple cells to the emergence of consciousness itself, carrying in their crystal structures the record of magnetic field reversals, climate changes, mass extinctions, and the slow evolution of complexity. Yet your moment, this single breath you take as you settle into sleep, is no less significant for its brevity. In the 4.5 billion years of Earth's history, there has never been another moment exactly like this one, never another arrangement of atoms and energy and awareness precisely like you, experiencing precisely this instant of existence. Your consciousness represents something genuinely new in the universe's long story, a way for matter to know itself, for the earth to experience wonder at its own beauty and complexity. The tectonic plates that carry you through space are still moving tonight, still following the ancient choreography of collision and separation that has been reshaping the planet's surface since the beginning of geological time. Continents are still drifting toward new configurations, new patterns of land and sea that will characterize the Earth hundreds of millions of years in the future, long before our species has either evolved into something unrecognizable or returned completely to the elements from which we came.
But this ongoing dance of geological transformation is not separate from the story of life. It is the very foundation that makes life possible. The cycling of materials between deep earth and surface, the constant renewal of ocean floors and continental landscapes, the patient circulation of elements through rocks and water and atmosphere. These processes maintain the chemical conditions that allow complexity to emerge and consciousness to flourish. The collision of continents that builds mountain ranges also drives the weathering processes that release nutrients essential for life. The volcanic activity that marks the boundaries of tectonic plates also recycles carbon and water between the deep earth and the atmosphere, maintaining the delicate balance of gases that keeps the planet's temperature within the narrow range where liquid water can exist. The earthquakes that release stress along fault lines also help maintain the dynamic equilibrium that keeps the Earth's interior convecting, generating the magnetic field that protects life from harmful solar radiation.